A lot of professionals quietly assume something that once they start earning more money, their financial life will naturally become simpler, cleaner, more organized, more stable. But what often happens in real life is the opposite. More income creates more accounts, more investments, more responsibilities, more decisions, more moving parts, and eventually everything starts feeling financially busy, but not necessarily financially coordinated. And this catches many professionals off guard. Because after years of working with affluent Filipino professionals, I realized something important. Many people are not lacking income or discipline or intelligence. Their financial lives have simply become more complex than their current system can coordinate. Now, this is where things become important because I think many professionals quietly crossed a threshold they never fully noticed. I call this the financial complexity threshold. There are usually three stages. First, survival. Like, how do I get through the month? Then, growth. How do I build what I want for my family? And eventually, coordination. How do I keep all of this working together properly? And once financial complexity crosses a certain threshold, casual money management quietly starts breaking down. Because financial fragmentation is usually not a poverty problem, it's a coordination problem created by unguided financial execution. So, in this video, I want to help you think more clearly about whether your financial life has already crossed into high income financial complexity, even if you still don't emotionally feel rich. And as we go through this, I'd actually be curious whether you already feel this happening in your own financial life. More moving parts, but not necessarily more clarity. Leave a comment below if that feels familiar. Now, one major misconception I've noticed is that many Filipinos still think financial planning is mainly for ultra wealthy families. People imagine old rich families, massive estates, sophisticated wealth structures, private bankers. And honestly, when people hear financial planning, that is often the image they carry in their minds. But when I looked closely at our actual client demographics, something interesting appeared. Roughly 69% of Beacon clients fall into what we call the simple private or simple needs segment. These are not ultra wealthy dynastic families. They're usually professionals, executives, dual income households, business owners, specialists, and financially responsible families. And this insight changed how I started thinking about the problem. Because the dominant issue is usually not lack of financial access. No, it's increasing financial complexity without a coordinated way to make decisions. And this is where many professionals quietly become financially fragmented. One thing I've noticed is that affluent professionals quietly normalize their environment. What do I mean by that? An executive making 300,000 pesos a month, for example, compares himself to CEOs making millions. A doctor compares herself to specialists abroad. A dual income couple already building investments still feels behind because everyone around them seems wealthier online. And because people constantly compare upward, many objectively affluent Filipinos still emotionally feel average. Not because they're actually average, but because their peer group quietly resets what normal feels like. And I think this creates one of the strongest psychological tensions in this entire conversation. Many successful professionals are already doing well by Philippine standards while still wondering whether they are making the most of what they've worked so hard to build. And meanwhile, financial complexity quietly keeps growing underneath everything. Now, this next part is extremely important. Financial fragmentation rarely arrives dramatically. It usually arrives quietly and incrementally, one salary increase at a time, one child at a time, one property at a time, one investment account at a time, one responsibility at a time. Everything keeps growing. More accounts, more subscriptions, more responsibilities, more financial decisions sitting in the background waiting to be dealt with. But the way they make financial decisions never really evolved with the complexity. And eventually, something starts feeling emotionally different. Because the nature of financial stress changes as income rises. I mean, early stage financial stress sounds like, how do I survive? But later stage financial stress sounds very different. Am I making the right trade offs? Or what am I missing? Or why does this still feel mentally heavy? Why does it feel like everything is moving, but nothing fully feels coordinated? And I think many professionals quietly carry these questions for years without realizing there is actually a structural reason behind them. Because the emotional nature of financial stress changes as income rises. That distinction matters enormously because it validates something many successful professionals quietly feel but rarely know how to articulate clearly. So at this point, I'd really be curious. Does your financial stress today sound more like survival or coordination? Leave it in the comments below. By this point, the issue usually starts becoming much clearer. Many successful professionals are no longer struggling with basic financial survival. They are struggling with financial coordination. If someone mapped out your entire financial life today, would it feel coordinated or financially busy but structurally fragmented? And I think this is why many affluent professionals are already financially successful while still feeling structurally overwhelmed underneath. Now, this next distinction is probably one of the most important ideas in this entire episode. Financial fragmentation is usually not a poverty problem, it's a complexity problem. Because many professionals already earn well, save consistently, invest regularly, support families, own multiple financial products, and think seriously about the future. So the issue is usually not irresponsibility. The issue is that success often increases financial complexity faster than people build the guidance and decision structure to manage it well. And this surprises a lot of professionals because many people quietly assume if I become more successful financially, things will naturally become clearer. But often the opposite happens. The stakes become higher. Mistakes become more expensive. Decisions become more interconnected. And eventually, even financially responsible people start feeling mentally overloaded. Until eventually, things feel financially busy but not financially coordinated. And I think this emotional inversion is one of the deepest frustrations many affluent professionals quietly carry. They think, I thought earning more money would simplify my financial life, but instead, my finances became more scattered. That feeling is much more common than people realize. Because many professionals are gradually accumulating accounts, insurance policies, investment platforms, properties, subscriptions, financial obligations, and advice from multiple sources without ever developing a coordinated system tying everything together properly. And I think this line captures the problem very accurately. Many professionals are accumulating financial activity faster than financial coordination. And once that gap starts widening, mental load starts growing too because eventually people are no longer just managing money. They're managing competing priorities, unfinished decisions, multiple obligations, and increasingly interconnected trade offs. And this is why many affluent professionals quietly feel mentally overloaded financially, even while objectively succeeding. Now, this is where the conversation around financial planning usually becomes misunderstood because many people keep waiting to feel rich enough before acknowledging they already need structure. But honestly, I think that's the wrong threshold entirely. You do not need to feel ultra rich to experience high income financial complexity. The real threshold for financial planning is not status, it is complexity, responsibility, and the need for wiser coordination. Because once your financial life becomes sufficiently interconnected, casual money management eventually stops scaling properly. What worked earlier, like basic tracking, isolated decisions, occasional investing, reactive planning, eventually becomes insufficient because consequences increase, moving parts multiply, and coordination matters way more. Let's face it, your financial life has probably already outgrown casual money management. That is not failure. That is complexity. And I think this is what many successful professionals are actually looking for. Not sophistication, not prestige, not elite wealth signaling, but coordinated clarity. The peace of knowing that the different parts of your financial life are working together toward the life you want. And this is why many successful professionals quietly feel financially overloaded despite doing well. Not because they're financially irresponsible, but because their financial life has quietly become too interconnected to manage casually anymore. The real issue is probably no longer effort. Your financial life has simply outgrown one decision at a time kind of management. And I think many professionals quietly crossed that threshold years ago while still telling themselves they just needed to organize things better. Many affluent Filipinos are already financially successful by Philippine standards, but success alone does not automatically create coordination. And I think this is the emotional progression many professionals quietly experience. From I thought earning more money would simplify my financial life, but instead everything became more financially complicated. Everything kept expanding: income, responsibilities, financial decisions, future consequences. But the decision system guiding everything never evolved at the same speed. And once someone finally recognizes that, the next question becomes extremely important. What is financial planning actually supposed to help you coordinate? Because many people still misunderstand that completely. I'm Mon Casas from Beacon Wealth Advisory. I'll see you in the next episode.